包括係綜援人士咧係想廢除公立組別。
We don't have to rely on surveys. 516 tells us the highest polling was in Shamshui-Port, which is the poorest district in Hong Kong.
咁我哋都唔使睇太多嘅數據啊。咁你睇516嘅公投運動，就係投票率最高嘅就喺深水埗區，就係最窮嘅區。
And in many areas of Hong Kong with luxury housing blocks, it was record low turnout, the lowest in Hong Kong.
咁喺好多其他區域，有啲係比較有錢嘅區域咧，咁嗰個投票率係非常之低。
And I agree with the rather neat formulation about courage and knowledge. You can't replace, class instincts. You may not have a university degree, but if you've come through the school of hard knocks, you know which politicians you can trust and which politicians you have to fight.
咁其實講勇氣同知識嘅可同如果嘅你即係你唔使太叻嘅啫。如果你係真係基層出身嘅，咁你咪明即係邊個政客你要投票啦。
Now, Gavin made the point, well, if workers get a pay rise, then maybe they become passive and they're not going to be involved in the struggle.
咁又有阿貴又講咧，就話即係如果工人如果得到呢個工資改善嘅時候咧，可能佢就撤咗氣啦。
But this is one of the reasons why Hong Kong actually is a very, very unstable place politically.
咁呢個就點解即係香港係一個非常之唔穩定嘅地方咧，尤其是喺政治上。
Because half the population have suffered falling income in the last 20 years.
咁因為有半數人口咧，就喺過去嘅20年咧，就係因為工資嘅即係減工資嚟嘅受苦。
And it's become very, very polarised. The gap between rich and poor has more than doubled from 14 times, the richest group in Hong Kong, 14 times richer than the poorest group at the time of the handover in 1997, to nearly 32 times now.
咁1997年之後咧，咁就回歸啦，咁就最有錢嘅人咧，同最窮嘅人咧就係14倍，而家32倍啦個。
But I was very interested in what Paul Ying took up, even though she's sleeping now.
咁我最有興趣就係佢就講下笑啫，講下。
But about the fact about the casino economy, Hong Kong went from being a manufacturing sweatshop to a casino economy.
咁呢個香港由一個血汗工場嘅地方咧，就變咗一個賭場經濟嘅地方啦。
But already now, there are features of this in mainland China economy.
咁而家其實中國經濟又咁嘅喎。
The housing bubble in China today is actually statistically more extreme than the housing bubble in the US in 2006, which burst and created the subprime crisis, which of course went global.
咁如果根據統計咧，而家中國嗰啲房產嘅泡沫咧，仲勁過喺2006年美國嗰個房產嘅泡沫啊！呢個泡沫大家都知道啦，就係一爆之後咧，令到全世界都唔掂㗎啦。
And all those in power, they assume that China's economy is going to keep going forward like a rocket for the next 10 or 20 years. I don't think that's the case.
咁所有喺中國掌權嘅人咧，就覺得咧，為中國嘅經濟就冇得頂啦，好似火箭咁向前彈啦。10零20年我真係睇唔到有咁嘅嘢。
On June 4th, there was a big article in the South China Morning Post with the headline, China's Greek Fears.
喺6·4嗰日咧，呢個南華早報咧就有一篇大文章啊，嗰個題目叫咩 ？China
Greek fear, the fear of a Greece happening in China.
哦，中國害怕希臘化。
And the author, who was a top figure within the Communist Party of China, an economist, was raising the danger that many of the local governments and city governments in China now have such big debts that they can actually they can default on their debts. They could be unable to pay back what they owe to the banks at local level.
咁佢就呢位係一個中國好出名嘅經濟學家啦，咁佢就話咧喺呢個省市嘅層面咧，好多嘅地方政府咧根本就冇錢還債㗎啦。
So what's happening in Europe now is like a second wave of the global crisis, the global capitalist crisis.
咁如果喺而家歐洲發生嘅咩就係搞資本主義經濟危機嘅第二波。
But the third wave could come from China.
咁第三波咧中國嚟嘅。
And I agree with Long here. I mean, if that happens, then Hong Kong is going to be absolutely smashed economically.
咁我就同意阿長毛講啦，就係話如果呢個發生咧，咁香港就
所以
即係smash 就用大鑊解決就即係廣東話做
I
到
mean,
嘅。
unemployment could triple or quadruple in Hong Kong.
咁失業率咧可能係雙倍或者3倍啦，失業嘅人數。
So it's quite clear that the struggle for democratic rights has got to be. You can't separate it from the struggle for a minimum wage, for the struggle for not just a minimum wage, but real wage increases for big sections of the population who may not be on the minimum, but they're still not making enough money.
嗱，咁呢個民主嘅鬥爭咧，就同呢個最低工資或者唔係淨係最低工資，就係話要加人工啦。因為咧，即使有好多人咧就冇需要最低工資保護佢，但係佢哋嗰啲人工加得唔夠，好大鑊嚟㗎。
And in my opinion, the capitalist system is not able to afford that. They will fight that all the way. They will fight just as they're fighting now over $24, insisting that people take $24 as a minimum wage.
咁佢話資本主義嘅即係資本家咧就即係一定會繼續懷抗㗎啦。咁就佢係會盡量令到嗰啲最低工資係低啲嘅，咁可能24蚊啊，25蚊啊咁啊。
So the struggle for democracy is not just to elect a real legco and to elect a government.
咁所以即係真民，即係呢個民主運動咧，唔係話即係改選呢個立法會啊，改選呢個政府啊。
Because if Li Ka-shing still controls nearly 10% of the economy, and if the tycoons still dominate the economy, they will just tell the chief executive and the elected legco what to do.
咁如果啲大好似李嘉誠咁樣係能夠壟斷經濟嘅，咁佢就會叫特首同埋立法會做乜鬼
And
啊？
if the elected government refuses, they will just say, right, we're taking all our money out, we're going somewhere else.
咁如果個政府唔聽佢講嘅，咁佢就話我撤資啦，我拎啲錢走啦。
So we've got to have democratic control over the banks and the big companies as well.
所以我哋對嗰啲大公司同埋銀行咧，要有一個民主嘅控制。
I mean, after all, they are more powerful than the elected government.
咁其實講到最後尾咧，佢哋仲比一個當選嘅政府咧更加有實力啦，有權力啦。
The European banks are now telling Greece, this is what you've got to do. And the Greek Prime Minister is saying, we don't want to do it, it's very unpopular. And the banks are saying, we've got no choice, we're telling you, you've got to do this.
咁而家啲銀行家就同呢個希臘嘅首相講，喂，你要咁做，要咁做，咁做。咁個首相個總理就話咁做唔得嘅喎，冇人支持嘅喎，佢冇機會嘅，我哋一定要跟住我咁做。
And that's why the members of my organisation, CWI in Greece, they're making two demands now in the big movement that's happening in Greece. The one is saying public ownership of the banks, democratic control of the banks.
咁呢個就係因為呢位Lawrence 佢喺希臘嗰啲同志有個團體有個組織㗎，有政黨就係話，即係有兩個嘅訴求，一個就係即係要呢個要能夠
公有化
嗰個將嗰個銀行公有化。
And the second demand is cancel the debt.
咁就係
We're not paying back the money.
第二個就係賴債啦，唔係。
And this is all part of, it's linked to the same struggle really in Hong Kong.
咁呢個係同香港嘅鬥爭係有關係。
It's just that what's happening in Greece now could be what happens in Hong Kong in 2, 3 or 4 years' time if the Chinese bubble bursts.
咁呢個唔係講笑嘅，因為呢個可能喺4、5年之後咧，如果中國嘅經濟係爆煲嘅話咧，呢個可能喺香港會發生嘅。It happened in Argentina in 2001, actually in 2001.
Yeah. So we have to prepare for that.
所以我哋要做好準備啦。
I was going to say more, but I know I have to finish now. But
我想講多啲，不過而家
for
我
those who want to read our
收皮啦。
analysis of the 516, there's a very good magazine on sale outside called Socialist.
OK， 咁出邊有本嘢叫做咩16啦，係大家可以買。咁我係邊個寫㗎？佢唔係我。OK，thank you guys。